Claude, you know that we have two products. It's old for Fauna Marin, but for us, the new products, coral dust and Alimentos grow, because we had the issue with the agriculture minister, so we got all the licenses, and this was took a little while, but now finally we put the product in the market. Could you please explain the difference between those and the results that we can expect, and so on? So a little bit explanation for each product for us.
So yes, I can do, sure. I just will take a filter, and then I can show on the cords by self how we work with that. 1 second, please. Den Filter. I need the photo filter so that I can show it better. Give me a second, please. So I can show it because this explains now.
Okay.
Now you see here is a section where we read our LPS.
Okay.
1 second, you cut off the light, then it goes better. So, actually, we work here with cathode lights and under full blue. They are not perfect for the cam, but I'm sure you will see what I mean. So here we have different type of, let me say, favias, power bankies, catalophilia, and acants, which we breed here and let do a grow up. So now you see that these acants, and even if you take the power bankies like this one, you see they have really large polyps. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
This polyp can take very fine particles and very fine food, but they are not made for. That's why we produce the LPS growing color. These are specialized here now to see. These are specialized food particles which are full of protein, extremely low in carbohydrates, because corals don't like carbohydrates. At the end, these are like mysis or like a shrimp pressed, and we give some calcium, calcareous material so they can grow the polyps better and give them the coloration and the contrast of the colors. So with trace elements. And this type of food is extremely soft. And I developed about 15 years ago, I developed to make food which is soft, because the hard particles which coming in the stomach of a coral, they destroy it. So because they don't know it in the reef, and they buy a shrimp or something else, it's not hard at the end. And one of the biggest issues was that the food was filled with preservatives. These preservatives kills the bacteria in the stomach of the coral. And I need to make a food which is full of protein, not with wheat or some stuff inside, because the coral cannot use. She must spit it out. And if she cannot do that, the food will rotten in the stomach. Because we have a temperature of 25 degrees, and proteins 25 degrees is dangerous when she cannot digest the food completely. The other problem is if you use fish food, it has too many power. It is too many energy for the corals, and so also can start rotten or growing cyanobacteria in the skeleton or these green algae. So that what I do now is a food which is especially made for corals and not a rebranded fish food for feeding. And I make small particles. You can see it here. And they are so soft that I only need to squeeze it a little bit, and it's only powder. You see?
Yeah.
So
good.
And now we go there, and we do, and that was the idea of the target feeding. So usually here I can do it on that way because we have enough, and the particles flowing around, going down. You see that? And hit. When I have luck, then I hit a polyp. And creating the surface with a type of fat and a type of protein, creating the feeding response so that the coral put these particles in and have the full energy, and I don't need to feed in the water column, so that I don't have too high nutrients in the water. So this is made for target feeding. Usually we use that pipettes, cookie busters, pipettes, whatever. You put the particles in a little bit of water, and then you can give them step by step, and so they grow about 3-4 times faster as you don't feed them and you work only with light.
So you feed it straight.
Exactly. Yes. When I have a huge amount of so many polyps like we have here running, we squeeze the particles a little bit, like that, and we let it move then so that the corals can take it with a little bit smaller ones. And the food reaction is a bit stronger because the fatty acids, which I have to protect from oxygen, they are inside the grain. The food is like it's like a cabbage. So inside are the fatty acids and the proteins, which I need to protect from oxygen, and outside is a fat layer, which prevents that oxygen goes inside this granule. So and if I make this with all the fish foods. So when you squeeze the fish food at the beginning, the fishes can smell it better and eat it then the first time faster. Because we don't work with what's the English word for it, with chemicals or with aromas, so that the fish eat it faster. So all what we use is normal natural thing, but we protect it inside of the granule. And that's also why we said use granules for feeding, and not flake feed or something like that. And the same you can do also with the catalaphilias. You see, we do it in that way, but you can do target feeding. And you see, we even cut them ourselves. So these are fish babies here, which comes from the big ones, and the big ones will grow, and then we cut them pieces, and then we let them grow again. So they come in that way, and they grow quite fast. The idea behind this following is when we cut acants, then we cut the first 1 or 2 polyps, and then we let grow the small polyps around. And then we cut them again. So we don't cut it from big mother colonies from Brazil. So all what we breed here, we breed from that polyps is coming around. And due to that, they have no light. They create a really strong and wonderful fluorescence, mostly better than the mother polyps, where we use mostly we use 2 or 3. And after 6 months, we have about 10 to 12 with feeding. And so we put another 4. And from this 4, we put another 16. And that's the way why we can create a few thousand acants in a year. And we buy from Australia, usually we buy only a few. So this was the only one which we buy from Australia this year to have new colors or to have new stock. So they keep here sometimes, and from their research is, let me say, 5-4 to have new colors, and all others we breed by feeding the corals in the tanks. You see, and also when we use then the products, you can see them here on the table. This is then what we dose, and that's it. So there's nothing more. So you can see we do that same with the Favias, with the Mysterias, and now it's not many here because Christmas was really. We have to sell a lot of, and here you see that we start with the new ones. Yeah.
Good.
So, and that's for that we use LPS, growing color. This is made for that. The dust is for the same, but we use it for the gorgonias, because dust is a very fine powder, starting from 10 microns. Going up to 200 till 300 microns, and here I can show for what we use it. If you sit down, we have LPS, but with small polyps.
Uh-huh.
Target feeding of them is impossible.
Uh-huh.
Sure, you can do. So if your wife said you have to clean the house, you said, hey, I have to target feed my corals first. So you do this one, then you target feed them. And here we have the scollies. So and you see the scully here is just reacting on the food which I put in another tank, it's only the smell. And dust we use for that one. So sometimes we mix it. So target feeding one type, and dust comes in the water, but first we mix it with seawater. Yeah. So coral food always mixing with seawater, fish food mixing with fresh water before feeding. You help your fish massively if you give them a little bit fresh water for food. So if you use granule food, you put in fresh water, you let soak it and then feed it. And corals, not to, you take seawater. That's the difference between the two types of feeding. And maybe you can see it here. And this is then what the food made for. Yeah. So this strong contrast. The trick to bring the contrast of the fooding, we use a kind of a titanium. And if you use a titanium as trace element in the food, you will get more and stronger contrast of the colors. So it's not to make the colors by itself, but the contrast is much better. And you can see it here. It's very, very clear contrast on the coloration and not mixing like you have when you're doing the raw food.
For the target feeding of granulated food, could we use it also for the SPS, for the acropora, or is it better for the acropora just to do amino acid dosing?
Yeah.
So no.
Acroporas, montiporas, this type of corals are definitely not made for target feeding. It makes no sense. Sure, you can put it near a suspension. So if you do a suspension with these extremely fine food like coral sprint, which is more a solution after you dilute it, this is not made for that. It's really made acroporas and that stuff, taking the organic compounds out of the water by helping by their bacteria. So the bacteria by self taking the organic out, change it and give then the coral the food. Here you can see now, here you can see very well now that this one is hit by the food and the coral is between the progress. And when I do it then here, like this, you see, and I can give one by one, I can give the coral, and so I can give them start. Sometimes here we use a little bit a different version where I have many more calcium inside and elements, so it's higher nutrients. We need that for corals which are not healthy. So we even here work sometimes with a little bit medicine in the food, but we are not allowed to sell this. This is not possible by law. But it is possible to do if we have ill fish or something like that. Then we can do the medicine soaking in the food and give it then for feeding. And this is the best way. It's maybe for the stores very interesting when they get new fish and they have to bring them back to good health. So sometimes it's necessary to give them medicine, and this is a way how to do it very proper.
We can see on the video, it's a very, let's say, you offer just a tiny bit for each colony, it's not covering the colony with food. It's just a tiny bit.
No.
We'll take it and not messing with the water.
No,
is that the idea?
Not. Right, absolutely not. So we give the, let me say for one colony here, if you see the small one there, we give one small piece all three days, all 4 days. At the beginning, and when it grows, then we give them a few more. But it's not necessary to give them food like every day. This is definitely too much, and then you have the situation of the over fertilizing again. But the food, no, the corals have catching their catching cells. Yeah, so the whole polyp is made for catching food. If you don't give them food, they are not strong. So the catching cells they're becoming back. So the coral is made for food, and I don't understand why we feed them.
Okay.
Many reefers don't do.
And
They say light, but light is only on top.
And they totally kill the flow for some minutes to let it digest it.
No, there is a flow inside here, but it goes on under the deep. And because actually we have visitors here who want to buy coral, we cut off the main current. When the customer is going, then but we have a turnaround. I can shortly show. So the main what we do is the skimmers. That's the main thing, and the skimmers are on top. We have a base which is nothing in, only 2-3 filters with carbon and zeolite. And then we have a lot of current, usually, so it looks like, and that's it. So, and here's part of quarantine section. So we keep the corals first for a few weeks, sometimes months. Then when we frag them, or when we frag the other ones, then we put it in rows like this. You see the white one are the new ones. And after 6 months, between 3 months and 6 months, when they becoming bigger and bigger, you see that here starts with the small one, then they becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. Some of them are sold, and this one, which are too big then for selling, like this one now, they go back and we cut them again, and then we let them grow them again. And very rare, sometimes like here, you see we take new ones. So in this case, these acants, we take them new because some of these colors we didn't have before.
Claude,
what about zoanthids?
Claude, do you have a torch?
Zoanthids are here. Yes.
Do you have torches?
We have torches also. I show it later there in another section, but not many. So the torches are meanwhile are really well sold. Here are all our different type of shrooms and all different type of zoanthus. And zoanthus I feed very simple. We use one, the mines, right? And the coral dust. So I have only one hand free now. Give me a second, please.
So for zoanthus, you make a mix of a little bit of mayonnaise and coral dust.
Yeah. And that's the food for the workers, you know. But the shit gets the workers, the good thing the animals. So now you see the dust. The dust is, let me say, to 95% similar to the LPS food from the base, and only the part of fat and to make it to hold it in the water column for a long time is a little bit a different part of fat, and we build some small air bubble. But here you can see is that we have very, very fine material and a little bit more bigger. So perfect for the different type of zoanthus or some that. You can do it on that way. Yeah, if you don't have a sump and keep it around and the animals can catch it, or you do it the same like I do with the LPS food before. You soak it, keep it like that, with a little bit water, and then you put it very simple over the zoanthus, and I would say it's also 2 times a week. It's enough. So for the most normal reef tanks, it's not necessary to buy the 250 milliliter version. The small one, so the 100 milliliter is mostly enough, and it's better to buy it more often. So and then when I want to start it now, I can do it on that way. Give a little bit there are also new here coming, and now I start with a little bit
followers. People,
yeah.
Pay attention. This is food. This is great, but check how Claude feeds. This is tiny amounts. This is not pouring.
You don't need it, you
Yeah,
know,
I
because
think.
the food is pure. There's no filler in, there's no wheat in or something like that. We don't use wheat. If you look on fish food, you can see that mostly it's corn or wheat or whatever inside. But a coral cannot use wheat. So for them, that's like a sugar bomb, and this will destroy the corals over a long time. So that's, you know, a sales guy. So Carlos will not hear now. Better you cut off your microphone now, Carlos. Our sales guy, they say always, okay, but the people need to buy more often. But the problem is always the same. If I do a product which I want not use precipitations on it, I need to do that very concentrate. So, because when I have a polyp, and a polyp eat the food with precipitations in, and precipitations kill bacteria. But inside the corals is full of bacteria that they can use the food, and this works not together. So, and that's why I need to do a very high concentration, but that means on the other side that you need very less food, and this is a danger that the people feeding too much.
Okay.
That's the main point. Yeah, why we do it on that way, and you see it also on Mines. On Mines is fully concentrated because the only thing what I use for precipitation is salt. For salt, we have enough in the water. Salt, the coral don't care. But all the other things which you usually use, like echinocin and all the chemicals, for that, the coral has really issues with on a long time. A short time, long time depends on the coral. And that's why all is so high concentrated. So I know the food is more expensive as others, that's right. But if you look on what you get for, in fact, it's mostly cheaper. So due to that you need so less, it's in fact it's cheaper to feed very often with our food as in others, because you feed only wheat and corn and all that things which are grown in big farms, mainly in the US. And then after that, you have a lot of phosphorus, you have a lot of problems with nutrients in the tank, and then you buy a very expensive phosphate remover or whatever, and to remove the problems which you don't have if you feed from the beginning on right. And the same, we have the same problem with humans. How more shit we eat, how more expensive, how more money we need to create the problems back. And that's the same with the course. So it's very easy, the sense behind it.
Perfect.
So now we go to these. This is SPS section sample. So, but there we use amine and amine-S also for feeding. So these are all our different. And so we sold them.
More focused on amino acid dosing, more, let's say, clean water.
Exactly.